Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Singapore, please welcome Dylan Cole from Revenate.
Thank you. Hey everybody, the Americans here, woohoo! Thank you all for having me. This is my first time in Australia. I've been here since Sunday, and I love Australia, it's amazing. Let me get my clicker out here. There we go. All right, as Adrian mentioned, I was a celebrity in South Korea in my early 20s. That's me up in the top corner there. I've probably been to more places in South Korea than most Korean people, honestly. Think Anthony Bourdain, but a bit more goofy, all right? So that was my previous life, living in South Korea. And then I've been with Revenate for 10 years now. I was based in San Francisco up until 2 years ago when I got offered the job to move to manage the Singapore office, and then the pandemic hit mid-move, which was awesome. But we've been able to do really well since, and I've met a lot of the folks in this room on Zoom calls, and I've made some really good friends so far in the Australian market and all over APAC as well. All right, so let's talk about first our frenemy, the OTAs. And if any of you OTA folks are in here, we do love you, you're cool, but you are our frenemies. So this number is pretty astonishing, and maybe some of you have seen this before, but $11 billion were spent by the OTAs, Booking.com and Expedia Group in 2019 before the pandemic. And that's a pretty daunting number because if we roll up everybody's marketing budget here, it doesn't come anywhere close, unless you guys are hiding some dollars from me that I don't know about. But I don't think it's anywhere near there. So the question comes up when you see this daunting number. What are we doing? Are we going to compete and win against these OTAs and win some of this direct business back? Or do we surrender and pay and keep paying the man every time these guests come back in the door? Well, at Revenate, we like to think of helping our customers be the champions, helping them win, helping them get some of that direct business back in the door. So we think of this thing we call the OTA cycle. And you'll be able to tell as we go through this deck which slides I made and which one the marketing team made. This one, clearly not me. But the OTAs, they send you a guest, that's awesome. Great, we need the acquisition point. 15 to 25% we might pay for that depending on how good you are at negotiating with them or how many hotels you have and how much leverage you got against them. But 15 to 25% it could be. So they come through the door, they check out, and believe it or not, I talk to a lot of hoteliers. Well, I talk to a lot of spectrum of hoteliers, and some are doing a really good job of remarketing these guests and getting them to come back direct, but some aren't doing a lot. They're letting these guests come to their hotel and then go back through the OTAs again. So you're constantly paying the OTAs to get that guest back in the door. So we're going to talk about the steps you can take and what we encourage our clients to do to get guests to book direct. And step number one is collecting the data, right? So you got to think about, so what we do is when we first meet a client, we looked at all the different touch points in the guest life cycle and think about where could you be collecting along that journey to improve your data collection. And so the first step is the inspiration stage, and I'm not going to go through every single bullet point on this slide, but the one point I wanted to point out is on the website and booking cart abandonment. So a statistic that you might be familiar with is that 80% of bookings that come through the door, or 80% of people that come to your booking engine abandon it. 80%, it's a huge number. And at that point, if you've set yourself up right, there are systems out there where you can actually capture those guests and pull in when were they planning to stay with you or hoping to stay, what is their name, what is their email address, and if you capture those the right way, they'll come into your CRM, and those are people with intent to stay at your hotel. So what you're doing is you're capturing that data, and then you can retarget them and hopefully avoid them going to your competitor if they've left that booking engine, or avoid them going to the OTA. So let's talk about the booking process, and one that seems very obvious is the PMS. There's tons of data in the PMS for you to use for marketing efforts, but you'd be surprised. I talked to a lot of hoteliers who are just pulling lists from the PMS. Maybe they're just pulling lists from the sign-up form on their website. They're not using their PMS data. There's incredible amounts of data in the PMS. There's thousands of profiles in there. And if some of you are already doing this and you're like, duh, of course PMS, well, you'd be surprised. Some people are not. But that's a great opportunity for you. And so during the pre-arrival stage, there's another opportunity to capture preferences. So you might send out an email that asks guests, what are your preferences? What do you want to hear about when we email you? Do you want to hear about our spa? Do you want to hear about about golf? What do you want to hear about? You could also be capturing operational preferences, things that would help them improve their stay. And then finally, in the post-stay phase, everybody in this room, I'm sure, whether you're using Revenate or another provider, you're doing a post-stay survey. But what I think a lot of people haven't thought about is, how does post-stay data also become part of the marketing team's efforts? Could you use looking at all of your guests that have left you a positive survey or a negative survey in your marketing efforts and tailoring your messaging to them? A lot of times that post-stay data gets siloed with the operations team, but there's a big opportunity for marketing teams to use survey data as well. Step number 2 is clean that damn data. You're getting data from all these different places. I'm encouraging you to look across the guest journey to get data in, but it's not helpful if it's dirty. And if it's sitting in all these different, if it's sitting in all these different profiles, it gets messy. So whether you use Revenate or not, make sure the CRM vendor that you're working with is able to clean that data so that you can take somebody like Charlie Brown, Charles Brown. This person has different email addresses. Their name's been spelled a little bit differently, but if you're using an intelligent system, it should be able to clean it up and put that guest into one profile for you. And so this is what a Revenate guest profile looks like. And once we've consolidated the data across the guest journey, you end up with this rich guest profile, which is going to show you things like, how many times has this guest stayed with me? What's their value? Profile data like their name or their email address. How many stays have they had across the portfolio, right? So you can see they've stayed at a few of the properties here. That's their history. Also engagement on previous campaigns. How many campaigns have they opened from you? How many were delivered? How many were sent? These are things you can use as you consider your marketing efforts. Survey data should also be rolled up into the guest profile, so any previous surveys they've taken from the portfolio would be there, again, to be used in future marketing efforts. And then finally, preferences, as we talked about before. What are their preferences? Again, whether it be, do they like wine? Do they like golf? Do they like resorts? All that stuff being in a profile is awesome. All right, so now that we've collected data, now that we've cleaned the data, it's time to organize that data into a usable asset. And I heard a lot of conversations about labor shortages in the market now, and obviously that's a big topic for everyone, and turnover. But if you can get your marketing team together, your GM together, the revenue team together, and organize your library of segments and have that established, then the next person that might walk into a marketing role walks into an already established and organized segmented library of the different guest types you want them approaching, right? And also sitting down with these different teams and discussing what are our target audiences, who are the people we want to go after with our marketing efforts, can really pay off, because sometimes that pressure is just put on the marketing team to figure out what the audiences are. But everybody can do that together and get it organized. Some examples here are sort of organizing your database based on all of your positive survey responders, organizing all your OTA guests into a segment, pulling together all of your Australian guests, or maybe if you're here in Sydney, you'd pull together all your Sydney guests to be able to do local offers, guests with 3+ stays. But the idea is, get your team together, organize your database, figure out your target audience. Don't leave all that pressure to the marketing team to do all by themselves, because it's not, that's everybody's job. All right, so we've talked about the things you would do: collect the data, clean the data, organize the data, right? And what does that all lead me back to? It's breaking the damn OTA cycle. You got to do it, folks. Tony Robbins, let's go. Got to break that OTA cycle, right? So the idea with the CRM is you put that in place, you capture the data, and instead of letting the guests go back through this OTA cycle, you target market them with a well thought out plan of all the data you've captured, the different audiences you want to go after, and putting targeted campaigns towards them to eventually break the OTA cycle. What would it mean to your hotel or your group if you could reduce OTA spend by even just 2% or 5%? And the thing that drives me absolutely nuts is I'll talk to somebody and they'll tell me, oh, your CRM's too expensive. Well, okay, but you're paying the OTAs hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Okay, but it's just a budgeting thing, right? The OTAs go in the expense column, operating expense, and then we're in the marketing column. But it's worth investing in, and whether you use Revenate or not, of course I want you to use Revenate, but a CRM is vital. It's really important. You too can do a shoey and celebrate your win, right? Legend, this guy. I wanted to show you guys an example. Chantel is not here from Lance Moore. Unfortunately, she got sick with COVID, but she can't verify these numbers. But they're real. They're real. But they've done really well. They were on MailChimp before. They converted. They started segmenting their database, and she saw a mega shift in the OTA business over to direct. I want to call out a few more Revenate customers who've also done such a great job. Horrible Trump impression. But they've also done a really good job, and I just want to highlight a few awesome examples of what Revenate customers have done with the program. Rachel, where are you? You didn't want me to call you out, but anyway, I'm doing it. All right, Rachel. But one thing that Rachel's done is she's taken her database and she segmented all of her survey promoters, everybody that gave them a positive survey response. This is really awesome. So they took everybody that was a positive survey responder, and then they targeted them with a referral campaign. And they said, all right, you like staying with us because you told us on your post-stay survey, refer your friend and get them to come stay with us, and that friend will get 20% off on their next stay. They did 101 room nights off that campaign. It's just a really simple way of thinking about your data and segmenting. Ovalo Hotels, big money here, $232K, but what they did is across their entire portfolio, they rolled up all of their data, and then they segmented just the Australian audience, and they had a 38% open rate, which is pretty massive on a campaign set, and they did $230K in revenue. And it might be the GIF also in there that got the attention, but the segmentation of the database is great. All right, so Doma Hotel Group, they've done, one of the initiatives when they started with us is they really wanted to start getting birthday data into the system. And you can see from the open rate on that, I think it's 65%, which is, anybody involved in email marketing knows that that is a very large open rate, and you can attribute it to wishing somebody a happy birthday. And so collecting that birthday data has been really significant for them. This campaign hasn't been running so long yet, but it's already done $7K in revenue. One that I wanted to point out, I think a question that I get all the time is people say, well, how do I collect email addresses? Like, this all sounds great, but the OTAs don't give me the email, so how do I collect email addresses? Well, this is a group from the Netherlands, or excuse me, a hotel from the Netherlands, and it's one of my favorite ones. So at check-in, they say, if you give us your email address, we're going to send you a special gift after you check in. And so they'll get the email address, and then they'll say in the email, all right, use this password at the bar. The flock of flamingos has left the building, and you get 20% off your first drink. But the open rate on that's huge because they've told them that they're going to send this to them once they check in. And we've heard from them they've significantly been able to improve the capture rate on the emails, which has been great. All right, so Santa's here. So I just got to share something that's really special that we're really proud of at Revenate. We acquired a company last year called Go Moment. It's a text messaging platform that allows you to do communications through WhatsApp and SMS. So our CRM is going to power not only email, it does power email and also text messaging. So being able to set up automated communications with guests through text messaging during their stay. And just the last thing I wanted to point out, so all of the Choice properties use this product in North America. It's a brand mandated program by Choice in North America, and what they've seen is an uptick in their TripAdvisor scores because they're able to actually ask guests on property, hey, how's it going, fix problems while still on property. They've also increased loyalty signups because what they're doing is during the guest stay, they'll ping them while they have the engagement and ask, do you want to be part of our loyalty program? And they'll say yes via text message, and they'll be able to sign them up while on property. Labor shortage, I'm saying it again, but like Matthew during the STR presentation was mentioning this a lot, but obviously staff shortage, big thing. The system's able to respond automatically to inquiries. So Choice has actually been able to automate 80% of responses to questions by guests through text message. And then finally, they've been offering guests the option to get their room cleaned from text messaging. So that's resulted in some people not opting for a room clean, which has saved them money there, but also bringing to the attention that rooms are being cleaned through text message has actually improved their cleanliness scores because they're just bringing that idea of cleaning rooms to the forefront and to the top of guest mind. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me. A short and sweet one, but thank you so much for having me here in lovely Australia and Sydney. And thank you for your time, and we'll be around. Cheers.